Hey everyone! It's still a little bit cold out here, which means that it's also pretty cold in here. So much so that there's ice on things in here, and my tools are not even working correctly. And it's just generally uncomfortable and bad for morale, and it's really slowing down my work over here in this part of the year. So I would really like to have just a little bit of heating over here. Now, some of you have been asking, and yes, I do have plans to remodel and expand my little workshop over here, because I'm really starting to feel that it's just too inefficient and small for what I'm doing over here. I simply don't have room for all my stuff. I have things stacking up against the walls, I have it stacking up on my shelves, it's stacking up over and under my tables. And I just don't really have room to bring vehicles in and do the kind of work that I want to be doing on them, especially if I'm doing several vehicles at a time. Now these buildings, they were already here when I got this property. Well, actually no, this part in here, this was all collapsed, so we removed what was here and I put this up instead. But this part was just never really meant to be my working area. This was more like a garage, parking, storage kind of area. That's why it's really not insulated in here. It's just some plywood walls with a thin metal roof. But the rest of the buildings, they are nice and solid, and I really was planning to expand this part and make that my working area. Now for reasons, that just hasn't been possible yet, so I've just been using them as they were. It was at least a roof over my head and getting out of the wind, but it's just becoming too small. Something like this, it only fits in here because there is no cab on it. Otherwise, it just wouldn't even fit through the door. But it might soon be possible for me to remodel and expand this part of the building. But before I do that, there's a few things I have to figure out. One of them being, what kind of heat am I going to put up over here? Now, I don't normally accept the different sponsor offers that I get, and that's not because I have something special against that. But I've just set myself a bit of a personal rule that if I am to do some sponsor stuff, it has to make sense for what I'm doing. I don't want to try and sell you video games and protein powder and all that stuff. It has to be at least relevant for what I'm doing on this channel. And this time, it just so happened to come from the right people at the right time. I was contacted by Vevor, and they asked me if I wanted to try out one of their diesel heaters. Now the reason I say that came at the right time is, well, obviously because it's cold, but also I was just about to buy one of these things myself to test it out. So let's go ahead and see what I got here. Might have to move this down to the floor so you can see what I'm doing. And there it is. Just a complete unit. I wonder if that's supposed to come off. Oh, it is. It's just, haha. Okay, cool. And we got a little box of accessories here. So this comes in a 2, 5, and an 8 kilowatt version. I believe I have the 5 kilowatt version here. Yep, it says right there, 5 kilowatts. So there is both a bigger and a smaller version of this. Some exhaust pipe and a little silencer for that. Have a couple of the heating ducts to go on there. This one has 4 outlets instead of just one big one. And this must be the inlet pipe with a little air filter. And we have a bunch of clamps and a set of wires. Cool. Now you might have already seen one of these things before. I know some of the other guys here on YouTube, they've also been trying out different versions of these for different purposes. So this here is just going to be my take on it. I should just let you know I've not been given a script by Vevor or anything specific to say. I'm free to just give you my opinion on this thing. But that being said, this is not going to be like a review. I'm going to try and set this up in different locations here and see how well it does at heating up this space, because I really don't know. I might need a bigger one, I might need more than one, or I might need something completely different. But before we try it out, I notice it has some little clamps on it here, so let's just take this cover off and see what's inside of this thing. Oh, gonna need this fuel cap off. and it's clearly marked with S for diesel. Well, this all looks pretty simple. Got the fuel tank sitting up on the top there. Have a little fuel pump up here. Looks like there's plenty of line if you want to relocate that tank a little bit. Does come right off. So that's what holds the whole thing together. Alright. I'm not going to disconnect those fuel lines right now. You're going to have to do that if you want to take that whole thing off. Alright, so this here is the heater unit itself. It's slightly coming apart here. There we go. Fixed. So actually this heater unit itself, just judging by this outer casing, that looks a lot like the Ebersprecher or the Vebastro heaters. That's probably not a bad thing. Alright, it looks like I'm going to have to disassemble more things if I want to take this apart more, but I'm not going to do that right now. Let's put this back together and fire it up and see if it actually works. I will say this whole outer casing here, it does feel kind of thin and flimsy, but I mean, it does the job. It really doesn't need to be any more than this, and at the price point of these things, I wouldn't expect a whole lot more. But it is pretty simple to deal with. It's nice and easy to get into. Oh, can't forget our Cecil cover. Pretty simple for power supply on the back here. It's 12 volt DC, so you just got a positive and a negative, and that's all there is to that. And down here on the bottom we have an inlet and an outlet. Well, actually that might be the other way around. I'm gonna have to check that. And we have the fuel pipe coming in down here. Well, that fuel line is actually pretty kinked coming into that connection there, so I'm just gonna have to sort that out before we hook this up. I think I'm just going to take it off and bring it out of this hole up here instead, so we can have a bit more of a soft curve coming onto here. Yeah, that was not going to work too well. There we go. We'll have a nice big curve coming into that instead, yeah. That's going to be a lot better. Let's just get rid of this. There we go. And it's nowhere near touching the bottom here. There's plenty of room for that. Cool. Alright, now let's try and hook it up and see if it works. Now I do like that this is just one self-contained unit. So really I can just bring this around and set it up where I want the heat, as long as I can get the exhaust outside, of course. But I don't really think I'm going to be moving it around a whole lot. For now, I want to set it up in this room, because it's the smallest room and it's the only one with a little bit of insulation as well. So it's probably going to be easiest to see the effect of this in here. I want to try and set it up in this corner over here behind my tire machine, because, well, it's just wasted space right here anyway, and also there's nothing to set on fire here. There's just some steel and concrete. And there is an old chimney in this wall. Now there was an old wood burner here when I got the place, but it was all rusted out and non-functional, so that thing is long gone. But the chimney is still here, and it's still pulling some air out. And I'm thinking that I can make some kind of adapter to go onto that, so I can put my exhaust right into that chimney. But first, I'm going to have to make some bracket mounting thing so I can put this thing up on the wall. Just going to move the bend in this a little bit, because I want the whole thing a little further into the corner, so it's not so close to my shelves over here. Yeah, that means exhaust is going to end right around here. I'm not going to put a whole lot of effort into this mounting. This is just a temporary setup. If I do get to make the changes that I want to this building, this whole wall is going to disappear anyway. So with that said, let's make some brackets. Found some scrap pieces of cut-offs here. think they might... Hey, that's actually just a little bit longer than I needed. It's usually the other way around. Perfect. Just get the first one up. Right there. All right. At least try to make it somewhat level. Yeah. Maybe I should have moved this tire machine before I did this. All right, cool. Hopefully I got the spacing just close because I wasn't really being terribly precise. Oh, look at that. It's right in the middle of the brackets. Awesome. All right, so that is step one of the installation complete. That's actually looking pretty good right there. It's not in the way of anything, so I'm happy with that. It does actually have some little holes down here so you can bolt it down. I'm not going to do that right now. I'm gonna wait and see how this thing runs. If it does have some slight vibrations, I'm probably just gonna put a bolt through here just to keep it in place so it doesn't slowly walk off and eventually fall down from here. But now, let's go ahead and see if we can make some kind of adapter to make that exhaust pipe go into this chimney. Right, so this thing is, it's right around 25 millimeters. And we have to get that into, what is this? 118 millimeters. So we go from a 25 to 118. That's quite an adapter. So 118 is a very strange measurement, but I just found this massive piece of exhaust pipe. The internal diameter of this is 122. I don't need a whole lot of this, I only need like that much. So I'm thinking I could just slice it up along the side, cut out a little bit, and then bring it in to give me that 118 that I want. And I also found this little piece of pipe. This almost fits in here, so I'm just gonna need to grind this down a little bit, and this should work. So let's build some stuff. Who wants to see the wrong way to use calipers? Perfect circle. So I made my circle here 118, so now I just have to bring this in to match that, and we should be at least close enough for this. Perfect. I'm just taking it nice and easy here. This end plate is pretty thin, so it's quite easy to burn holes through it. Kind of feel like a kid just trying to make an ashtray to give to my parents. So now I just gotta make sure this small pipe is gonna fit onto this. I do need to take, I don't know, like 0.5 millimeter off this pipe. I should have bought that lathe long ago. Yes. Ah, and that's a nice tight fit. Sweet. So now I'm just going to shorten this up a bit. I'm just going to stick it right into the side of this, and we should be all done. I can't seem to find my step drill, so I'm going to have to see if I can do it with this, which ironically perfectly illustrates how much I need to reorganize this workshop. All right, that worked well enough, I guess. That's gonna be a tight fit. That's only just big enough. Well, you get the point. It's gonna be shorter though. All right, just like that, we have our adapter. So the exhaust from my heater can come onto here, and this will just clamp right onto the chimney. So hopefully this thing is going to fit on here. Yeah, that's a very tight fit. A little bit more tight than I intended, but I did want it to be nice and tight in here. Now before I go ahead and knock it on here, I just want to give it a little bit of sealer. Just going to give it a little bit of this exhaust sealer right here. Let's just get a little bit on here as well. Perfect. I did get a bunch of hose clamps and stuff with it, so might as well use some of that stuff. So now that I'm putting all of this stuff on here, I'm actually starting to think that maybe I should have tried turning it on to see if it actually works before I put this much effort into it. But let's just hope for the best. Besides, I would have had to get the exhaust outside anyway. Now that was the more complicated part of the installation. So now we just need an inlet, and then we can go ahead and put some power to it and fill it with diesel and see if this thing actually works. Which at this point I'm really hoping it does. So I just realized this is not really an air filter. There's nothing inside of this. It's just a hollow plastic can. So this is just for keeping all the branches and children and all the big stuff out of it. Anything smaller than these holes is just gonna go in and get burned. All right. That can just dangle right there. So I'm just temporarily going to set the battery up here next to it. Later on, I'm going to make a little shelf over here in the corner, and I'm going to set the battery up there along with a charger. But before I put a whole lot more effort into this setup, I really want to see if this thing actually works and also how well it works. So I'm just going to run it off right here for now. I don't think it uses all that much power, so I should be able to run it off the battery for a good while. Hopefully these cables are long enough. Yeah, that's plenty. You know, honestly, this is some really nice connectors on the back here. Nice and simple. Just like that. Haha, we have life. This is not the most convenient can to do this with. I just realized these two slots here, they are a little window, so you can see how much is in the tank. That's a nice simple way to do that. There is a little remote for it. It just has on and off and up and down, or plus and minus. I guess it's just up and down in temperature and obviously on and off. But let's go ahead and play with this thing. Now, I didn't read the instructions because it was mostly just Google Translate gibberish, so I'm just gonna try my luck here. Let's see. Okay, that does nothing. Sun, that does nothing. Up, on. Wait, maybe we have to... Something happened. Okay, I had to hold the button down. I'm guessing it's not going to start up right away. It probably has to prime all of those fuel lines in there. Can we turn it? Yeah, okay. I have several levels on here. 6, that's about as high as it'll go. So that's what? Aiming for 16 degrees? Okay. Let's just leave it in the mid-range here for now. I hear a bit of knocking. I think that's the fuel pump. Yeah, it's coming from back here. I bet that's the fuel pump making that sound. Right, so it's been priming with the fuel pump for a while. I don't know if the camera can pick it up. Yeah, there we go. See, the fuel is coming up to it now. It took a little while for it to push the fuel through all of those lines, but then again, the lines were pretty long. Let's see if something happens now that it gets in there. I can hear it rumbling now. It's definitely heating up in there. Yeah, the exhaust is already getting warm. It's doing something. Sweet. Yep, we're heating now. Nice. All right, so this thing, it is making a little bit of noise, and honestly, I was expecting that. After all, it does have to move some air, so there's going to be quite a lot of blower noise, and also you can hear that little fuel pump ticking away, but honestly, it's not that bad. Well, let's go ahead and start keeping track of what this is doing. Let's see the air coming out of here. Well, if I measure the heating element in there, it's well over 100 degrees Celsius. Let's try to see if I can catch the air coming out of here. Well, that's just around 50 degrees of hot air coming out. See the exhaust down here? Well, right around 100 degrees. So even though there are 4 ports coming out of this, I only got 2 pipes with it, but I suppose you're just meant to cut them up. I mean, they do extend a good bit. I just want to make it so that the 2 in the back here, they're pointing a little more out into the room, so it's not all just blowing right into my shelf here. I just cut out 2 little bends here, so I'm just gonna have one doing something like that and one doing something like that. Yeah. Yeah, that works. Nice. It has been a couple of days since I started recording this video, and the outside temperature has gone up a bit. So it's about 6-7 degrees outside or something like that. While in here, it is now right around 8 degrees. So let's keep an eye on that and see how quick it's going to change. Now, for those of you who might be concerned about it, I do have a little carbon monoxide monitor alarm that I'm going to be setting up in here. That's just always a good idea when you have a fire going inside a building. So while I just leave this to heat up for a while, I guess we can just talk about the thing that some of you are probably wondering, which is, why didn't I just put the wood burner back in here? It would be really easy to hook it up, the chimney's already there, and it would be pretty much free heating. Well, first of all, I might still do that, but I can't do it right here. As I mentioned earlier, if I make the changes that I want in here, this whole wall is going to disappear along with the chimney, and I would of course have to relocate this thing, so it's not really something that I would set up right now. And also the issue with the wood burners is they just take a really long time to get going. I have used them a lot in the past. I still have one in my house that I fire up occasionally, so I know how long it takes to get those things going before they actually start putting up some real heat and you can just leave them be. And because I'm not over here all that many hours every day, I need something that's a bit faster for the times where I'm just over here for an afternoon. I don't want to spend all my time trying to get the heat going. I need something where I can just go and push a button and I'll start getting some heat instantly. But yeah, once all of the rebuilding and remodeling is done, I might still put up a wood burner because yeah, it is free heat and they are very effective once they get going. So I was just looking at this and I got a different idea. I think I'm going to take these little bends and move them over here. And because I have 4 ports on here, I'm going to take these 2 other ones and I'm going to route them around and through the wall so I get the heat into the other room. I can't do it right now because I don't have the right drill to make holes that size, but I'm just noticing that right now, because these are just blowing straight, most of the heat is really just going into heating up this shelf right here rather than the air in the room. So it would be nice if I could distribute it out a little bit more in the building. Alright, so this thing has been running for about half an hour, maybe a little more, 40 minutes or something like that. And it's already done quite a bit to the temperature in here. We are at right around 12 degrees now. That's actually pretty impressive. Well, so far this little thing is doing pretty good, so it's going to be interesting to see how it does throughout the rest of the winter. And of course, if I do go and get my buildings a bit more insulated, this will probably be even more effective. So I want to give a big thanks to Vevor for sending me this to play around with. Now, if you are looking for one of these little heaters for your workshop, or your camper, or, well, any off-grid application really, I put some links down in the description for a few different models and also in different sizes, but there's actually quite a few to choose from, so you can go ahead and check out their website. Also, I have a code that you can use for a little extra discount. That's not just for the heaters, that works on the entire Vevor web shop. So go and check them out. They have a lot of cool and weird stuff like this in there. Of course, a lot of it is in the same build quality as this, but the prices also reflect that. Now, I'm going to get back to doing some Unimog stuff because I know that's what you really want to see, but hopefully I can now do it in some slightly better temperatures. So thank you all for watching along, and we'll see you in the next one.